time.
Sure. But also in The Fighter, what's interesting to me is that like it's about what you said earlier about those people who have power or make choices and they're stupid because to box you in, to compartmentalize that performance as like, well, she played that crappy mother in that movie is so shallow that, you know, that to typecast you as that based on that, you know, that's a dumb person.
I would have to agree with you. And that then says very sadly that there's a lot of dumb out there.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that if there's one thing we've learned as of late, that there's no end to the parade of stupid. So, but getting back to this idea of learning through, like, because it's interesting to me that if you're kind of a blank slate, you know, in terms of education, outside of the things that interest you, that the process of playing even a character like you did in The Body Brokers, you know, engages you in a way of thinking that is unique. It's proactive. It's helpful. It's interesting. It has its own context, and you learn to be a therapist in a way.
Exactly right. And it's interesting what you were saying about the therapist in Body Brokers as well, because the questions that you were asking about her are exactly the questions I asked of John. And
is she in on it?
And is she in on it? Is she a good therapist? Is she a bad therapist? And the most that John would give me on it, and it was a brilliant way to direct me, was to say, well, I'm sure she thinks she's good at her job.
Right.
You know, that she's trying her best. That's what people do.
Right. And in the context of that, it's like, right, because how could you not know?
And whether or not she knows all that insurance shenanigan,
doesn't matter.
I don't need to venture a guess at.
Right.
Because what John is telling me by answering my questions the way that he did, he's telling me that doesn't matter to the film.
Right.
It's another great director gave me exactly the same direction, basically, when I asked Zemeckis.
Yeah.
I was going to face off with Denzel Washington in the final scenes of Flight. Mm-hmm. And I said to Zemeckis, I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to mother him, coddle him, be angry with him? He was drunk flying a commercial airliner. You know, how does he want me to come at him? And Zemeckis brilliantly said to me, I want you to get Denzel to tell you the truth. Any means necessary. That's what he's saying to me. He's saying any means necessary.
Yeah.
And giving the actor a very clear objective.
And Denzel's he's a real acting animal. That guy is that's like high octane shit. So what was that like working with him on that?
Super exciting day and a half of my life. Just thrilling day and a half of my life to have something so clearly set as my objective, costumed in exactly the right way. Little did I know it. Just everything about that it was also, if you remember in that film, Zemeckis has Denzel's face up on these screens the whole time.
Yeah.
So whether or not the camera was facing where I was or facing where he was,
yeah,
he was on screen the whole time.
Yeah.
Very, very present and alive. And it was, although I never got within, I think, 10 feet of him, it was some of the most intimate playing I have ever experienced.
And so those kind of moments, like with this guy who directed Body Brokers and with Zemeckis, I mean, like, who were some of the other directors that you found gave you stuff that you could take away forever, you know?
Alejandra Iñárritu came up to me and whispered in my ear when I was trying to figure out how to deal with Jack, the husband in 21 Grams. He said to me, it was such a good remark because it wasn't about the character. It wasn't about the scene. It wasn't about the way I was playing it. It was about me in front of a movie camera, which was not what I was trained for.
Right.
And he whispered in my ear, Melissa, it's much better when you don't clench your jaw. I thought that was making me strong.
Right.
And he was saying to me, it looked like shit on film.
Right. And I'm a mouth breather. So you're going to cut to me, I'm always going to have my mouth open. So I have to really pay attention. So, like, I guess I want to ask you a little bit, as we kind of land this thing. Like, I grew up, I was a doorman at the Comedy Store, and I've had a lifelong obsession. I worked there, and I still work there, and I had an obsession with Mitzi, and you sort of played a character based on her in I'm Dying Up Here, which I guess sadly didn't last, but it must have been interesting being in that world for a little while. But you didn't really study Mitzi. You did what you wanted with that thing, right?
When I went to shoot the pilot for I'm Dying Up Here, I had never heard of Mitzi. I had never been to a comedy club.
Wow.
I had been inside the Improv in New York when Marty, back in 1984, invited me to take his improv workshop for free.
Marty,
Friedman.
No kidding?
Yeah, and I'd met him through a friend, and he said, come and take my class. And I said, I can't afford a class. And he said, no, just come. I'm inviting you for free. I said, okay. I did it one time. The most terrifying experience ever in my life.
And what year was that?
Stand up there and be funny. I'm guessing 84, 85, somewhere in there. In thinking back, it was such a big, and it was the only time I was ever, so it wasn't a up and running comedy club. It was a comedy club during the day when this class was going on in there.
Yeah.
Right. So I went out to do I'm Dying Up Here. I had never heard of Mitzi. Of course, I'd seen the store up on Sunset, but I never went in.
Right.
It seemed odd to me to go someplace to be made to laugh. Anyway, whatever. I get it better now. I get it better now. And I have such respect for the comics. I mean, not only the comics that we were telling history about, the comics that were on the show with us, the actors, bless their hearts, that were being asked to play comics.
Right.
It is, actors know, funny is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Drama is easy peasy next to funny.
Sure.
It's such a on purpose thing to make somebody laugh. That's like, wow, get your mind around that. So I knew that the character I was playing was Jewish, because in the pilot episode, she has a long speech about a relative in Treblinka.
Yes.
So how does this goy from New York be the Jewish lady out in California?
Well, you had New York, so that's a third of it.
Exactly. So I could do New York. That would be easy reach.
Yeah.
I had to dye my hair that really brassy blonde. Her name was Goldie, for God's sake. Uh-huh. And what else would a Jew from New York do when they got to California? So those were all things that informed me in finding my Goldie. So then we're in the midst of shooting the pilot, and I find out that it's based on a book. But no, it's not necessary. I read the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't read the book. We finished the pilot. And somewhere after we went to series, I did open the book and read it. I find it an extremely misogynistic book. I both like what he's saying about Mitzi on the one hand, but despise it all in the end. The hatred toward her, I think, is completely unwarranted. And then I heard at one point that poor Paulie, just months before his mother passed, as a matter of fact, was like, but my mother never did cocaine and my mother never. I was like, Jesus, somebody tell Paulie, sure, I'm not playing his mother.
Oh, yeah. So that was the biggest problem, huh?
That was, it's complicated because I have at this point played real people, Lady Bird Johnson, Alice Ward.
Yes.
That's a very different thing than inventing a character. And I feel too, I'm always protective of the women I'm asked to play. I was very protective of Mitzi. There was a lot of of Goldie.
Yeah.
I was very protective of things, that they were asking me to do within the show and that I felt were downright disrespectful of her. Mm-hmm. Didn't offer a chance to understand her side of the story. Melissa Leo understands very well why Mitzi Shore didn't pay those comics in the beginning. Uh-huh. The comics never once thought about what it costs to buy that booze and keep the place going. And I mean, I get the whole dialogue, but they wouldn't they wouldn't
right.
say that exactly in the show. So that was hard. But
so there was a lack of empathy with, because like it's a weird subculture. It's a very specific thing, the Comedy Store, and it had a profound effect on a lot of people that went on to become very big players in the world of entertainment. And she sort of like represents something almost magical for both darkness and light. I'm guilty of it myself. I did a documentary, with Mike Binder, and I was in her office, and like I was a doorman there, and I worked for her, and I was so it was like she was the dark queen of this world. That was, she was like the mother to all these wayward, borderline criminals. It's crazy, man.
I think is that documentary on Netflix?
It's a Comedy Store documentary. It deals with her a bit. It's on. And
there's one segment that deals with her. I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved that because that was much more gracious towards Mitzi than the I'm Dying Up There book ever was. There was a seeking of an understanding of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Unique individual. And I really enjoyed that. It is my belief, and maybe I don't know enough, that she invented modern day comedy, Mitzi.
Yeah.
When the husband left and the store was there, and she said, paint it black, one spotlight, only comics.
Yeah.
And that had never been done before. And there's comedy shops all across the country now.
It was one after the other, showcase room. Like her and Bud probably created this sort of like, you can see 20 comics in a night thing.
Yep.
So that was,
And comedy only, no vaudeville, no singing and dancing.
That's right.
Just stand up there and be funny.
The original improv was sort of a burlesque. It had more variety. So did Catch a Rising Star back in the day. But you're right.
Yep.
Straight up comedy.
Yep.
Well, I love the movie. I love you, and it was great talking to you. And I wish you all the luck with this film because I think it needs to be seen.
I thank you for talking about Body Brokers today and bringing John Swab's name to the forefront. You're going to hear a lot more about this young director, I know.
Okay, Melissa, take care.
Thank you so much for the time.
There you go. That was Melissa Leo. I love her. And the movie Body Brokers is in theaters and video on demand now. We'll have Michael K. Williams from the movie on Thursday's show. Hopefully, maybe one day I'll get to talk to that director. I'd like to pick his brain. But check that out. Also, check out that other movie that we talked about, Frozen River. Tremendous. I mean, you got the time. And don't forget, if you're struggling right now, check out BetterHelp. It's a secure online service providing professional counselors who can listen and help. You just fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and BetterHelp will match you with your own licensed professional therapist. It's a more affordable option than traditional offline counseling. WTF with Marc Maron is sponsored by BetterHelp, and our listeners get 10% off their first month of online therapy when they visit BetterHelp.com/WTF. Visit BetterHelp.com/WTF and join the over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced BetterHelp professional. And check out Cliff's book. We Had a Little Real Estate Problem, the unheralded story of Native Americans in comedy, out now. Get it where you get books. And now I'm going to fucking play with my wah-wah.